Hello book lovers, welcome to Uncommon Reader. My name is Daniela and it's Tag Tuesday. Yes, I saw this awesome book tag on Book Chat with Pat, and it's been created by Jen of Literary Love. And in some way it spoke to me because it gave me this anticipation to a season I long for, which is autumn. And it's called the Cozy Coffee Mug tag. So Pat had a beautiful mug in her hands. I actually have my favorite mug in California, which is my second home, but I do have a very precious mug with me. It belonged to my aunt, which is no longer with us, been many, many years. So I have inherited or just took from her cupboard this one so I can remember her by. I mean, just an object, but of course there are so many memories we share together, and you can see it's actually chipped, but I don't care because it's her mug, so it's very precious to me. And I thought this was a very clever tag as well, because the questions are quite interesting, and I look forward to share my answers. So the first prompt is, Hex the Patriarchy. Share your favorite women authors. So this is a similar question to a previous book tag that I did, The Phenomenal Woman, but this gives me a chance to present to you more female writers that I love. And so I'm not gonna repeat the same question. And here it is, my pile of books of Iris Murdoch. Yes, she is considered a British novelist and philosopher, although she is born in Dublin in 1919, and she died of Alzheimer's in 1999 in Oxford. So curious thing about how I was introduced to Miss Murdoch. I actually saw a movie starring a young Kate Winslet playing young Iris and Dame Judi Dench, which I adore, as old Iris. And they did such a marvelous job, both of them. And I can actually see quite a resemblance in both of them with Iris herself. The movie just made a big impact with me, and so I got very curious to learn about her writing. And so I went ahead. I was living in California at that time. I went ahead and I started buying her books. And I have to say, she was definitely a philosopher, because her books are really condensed with the psychology and how she can portray the very nuances of each personality of her characters, and also with humor and a little bit of sarcasm as well. A very poignant, and I definitely loved each of these books. The fact that there's not much of a plot in the books, but like she focuses so much on personalities, makes you kind of forget a little bit what the book was about, because it's so much involved in relationships that I feel like I need to reread these books. And I think I'm gonna, soon start with one book maybe every season, so I can go back in the Word. And I miss actually a few of her books that if I find them either in USA when I visit, or maybe even here in Italy, I will definitely get more of her, because it's been a while. I've read these, I would say, between the year 2000 something for maybe 10 years, and then I stopped. So I know I enjoy them, but again, I think it's time to refresh. The second prompt is, never underestimate a woman who reads Stephen King books. Well, not me, but the prompt is, share your favorite fictional women characters. Okay, I'm not reading Stephen King, but I think the only book I read from him was Misery. which was quite incredible. But I'm not good in horror, so I don't know. Maybe it's not about horror stories, but I guess that I think I'm a bit influenced by movies like It that's been created, which are totally horror, right? So I don't watch those movies. So I sort of tend to believe that Stephen King only writes horror stories, which I know it's not the case, but I still haven't gotten myself to read his books. But the female character that I've chosen for this prompt is actually from a crime series. So I think it's still a good link with this question. And it's a protagonist of an Italian series, which has been translated in English as well, at least the first 2 chapters. And I'm talking about Teresa Battaglia, and a series of books by Ilaria Tuti. Ilaria Tuti is a writer that comes from my region in Italy, Friuli Venezia Giulia, and all her stories from Teresa Battaglia are set in our region, but in a specific area that is really close to the border with Slovenia and Austria. You may remember a video that I shot in May when I went for a little getaway up in the mountains, and if you haven't, maybe you want to take a peek after this video. I'll leave a link in the info box as well. And all her mystery stories are infused with a lot of ancient traditions and legends and myths. So they go beyond the crime story itself, and it's very psychological as well. But our character, Teresa Battaglia, is a middle-aged woman with a very difficult personality that is actually facing a very difficult disease, Alzheimer's. And so while she's investigating on these very peculiar crimes, she starts to forget things, and she realizes something's wrong with her. She relies on her diary so she can take notes and try also not to make the others working alongside her that she's start to forget things. And it's very, heartbreaking to see her, because although her character is kind of difficult and confrontational, and she's often kind of rude with her co-workers, they still love her, and they tend to be very protective of her, because she had a very difficult past that we will learn, keep reading her books. But it's impossible not to fall in love with Teresa Battaglia. So there are 2 books available in English, and one is Flowers Over the Inferno, and the other one is The Sleeping Nymph. So I personally would add Ilaria Tuti as one of my favorite female writers, also to add along with Iris Murdoch, because she also writes beautiful historic novels. There are 2 brilliant novels that she wrote, all around the First World War, but they haven't been translated in English yet, so it's pointless for me to mention it, but I will do so as soon as they are translated. I'll make sure to talk to you about it. Third prompt, Edgar Allan Poe, share your favorite Gothic book or story. Okay, I'm not so big on Gothic stories, but I do have a few favorites. So the first one that comes to mind is definitely Oscar Wilde's masterpiece, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Such an original story, and captivating. It just mesmerizing. I don't know, I just get goosebumps just thinking about this thrilling story. There's another author I'd like to mention. It's actually another female writer. Her name is Sarah Penner, and she wrote a very famous The Lost Apothecary, and I actually bought the Italian version. I have it at home, and I love this book so much. It's set in the late 1800s and also in modern times. So each chapter go back and forth. And it's the story of this pharmacist, this herbalist who sells poison, of course in secret, to women with the only goal of kill men. So she creates different poisons for different women that come to her in secret, of course, and she has this kind of agenda because of a situation that happened to her, so she's out for revenge, but the essential thing is that only men need to be killed with this poison. So the modern time protagonist is actually a woman, an historian that finds a little perfume bottle by the Thames River, and she's sort of curious, and she starts this research. She's actually alone in her honeymoon, so she has all the time that she needs, and she definitely needs the distraction, and she will look for the history, and little by little it sort of creates this anticipation of solving the mystery of what happened to Nella in real life, because something happens that will put her business in danger. So a very enticing book. You just want to keep reading. She also wrote lately The London Sea and Society, which I also enjoyed, not as much as The Lost Apothecary. This also, it's quite Gothic because it's about medium and people that sort of try to use magic tricks to steal people money. So it's very intriguing because a real medium will sort of try to figure out the imposters, and again, it's one of those books that it's hard to put down. So fourth prompt is Swiftea. Name your autobi authors. Okay, so I think I'm going to start from the very beginning of my reading career, let's say so. Not the very beginning, but I think I started collecting books from Banana Yoshimoto with her very first book, Kitchen. And this was, let me see if I see a date, 1988. So yeah, I was in my 20s, and everyone was talking about this book. I think it was also one of the very few that were actually published in USA as well. It was quite popular, and let me tell you, Banana Yoshimoto's fame in Italy never ceased. She's still one of the most read authors, and of course she's Japanese, you can tell by her name, and I have quite a collection of her books at home. I think I bought all her books in Italy along the years, and I have quite a collection. There are many that I still haven't read. At one point I kind of stopped, and I also stopped buying her books probably like 7-10 years ago. I felt like, okay, first I should read the ones that I have at home, and then start buying them again, or maybe just rent them at the library. At one point I just stopped, but I would love to resume reading her books, because for me it was like diving into Japan. She writes simply, but at the same time there's some atmospheres that she creates where you're really into it. She describes it so well that you feel like you're part of the book, and also she's really good at expressing people's feelings, so you feel really connected to her characters. There's another writer that I have to definitely mention, and it's one of my latest passions. It's Emmanuel Carrère. Is a French author, also a screenwriter and a director. I've started reading him only a couple of years ago. My first encounter with him was V13. It's his chronicles of the trial of the terrorists that attacked the Bataclan and several bistros in Paris in November 2015. And there are other books that are sort of current affairs related, and also some biographies. And he infuses these books with a lot of autobiographical situations and episodes of his life, and which I find very seducing because he's very open and potent, trenchant. I really love his style. And by the way, stay tuned this Friday because I'm going to talk about one of his books that's been made into a movie. It's been presented at the Festival of Cannes earlier this year, and so I'm so curious to see the movie because I've just not read but listened to the book in an audio version. Moving on to the fifth question: can Crystal Lake share a book that makes you feel nostalgic? Yeah, okay. Any book with Paris in it, okay, I'll be nostalgic because Paris is my favorite city. And so every time I read a book set in Paris, I just get very, very dreamy. And I'm thinking, oh, that time I was at Place de Bouche or in Montmartre. And I think this book I'm going to mention is also portraying a lost side of Paris, which is the Belle Epoque. And I'm speaking about The Paris Bookseller by Kerry Maher. It's a fictional story of Sylvia Beach, who was the founder of the first Shakespeare and Company bookstore in Paris in the Latin Quarter. And her bookstore became like the hub, the place of encounters, and you would meet people like Ernest Hemingway, James Joyce, Gertrude Stein, Scott Fitzgerald, and many more, Ezra Pound. They would all go there because that was the only bookstore in Paris that would sell books in English. And so I really get just mesmerized thinking about those golden days during the Belle Epoque, where culture, music was so important. And seems like Paris was the center of the world in that matter. Quite a magic era, and it makes me really dreamy. The sixth prompt, it's Happy Halloween. Share a holiday theme book that you recommend. So I read this book on Halloween last year, and it's Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I decided to finally approach this book after reading Mary of Anne Eckhout, which was an interesting, beautiful book on Mary Shelley's life just before she started writing this book and what inspired her. Reminiscing back a very sinister vacation or period of time she spent in Scotland visiting a family, and she had very sinister and weird encounters, and so that definitely had a role in writing Frankenstein. And this book, it's nothing like you think it is if you just watch the movies. And actually, after reading the book, I was like, okay, I don't really remember much of the movie. Let me go and see it. And I was like appalled because it's nothing like the book. Frankenstein, which is the doctor that creates this monster, is appalled of his creation and refuses it. Instead, you connect with this monster right away because the only thing he's interested is connecting with humans and being friend. He wasn't violent at all. And so I think this part most of the time is kind of lost in the movies. And I felt personally really connected. I felt such an injustice for, I think the whole thing about appearances, right? What you appear to be might not be what you really are. And so it's a very deep, deep story. And I can't believe Mary Shelley was only 18 when she wrote this. when it kind of reminded me of a recent book I read, our buddy read with Renee, the diary of a young girl, Anne Frank, of course, that wrote such profound thoughts when she was only 15. So Frankenstein, give it a try. So it's time for the last prompt. It's this mug is magic. Share a book you enjoyed that is outside of your comfort zone, typical genre. Okay, so I think my out of comfort zone is definitely dystopic books. But oh my gosh, I gave 5 stars to The Road by Cormac McCarthy. It's so gripping. You really can't put it down. The story of this father and son walking through a destroyed America, looking for, a better future or just food to survive. It's something that will consume you because you just don't want to put it down until you know that they found food or they found shelter or they were safe from cannibals, and just breathtaking. And of course this is considered McCarthy's masterpiece, and I have no doubt that it's considered already a classic. So this is the magic for me of dystopian books. Sometimes it can really take you into atmospheres that are so brutal, but at the same time you're so fascinated by it. And the good thing is it's fantasy, right? So you're living such a thrilling experience, but it has nothing to do with reality. Whereas with certain other books where they can share a war experience and maybe something that really happened, you feel the same, but at the same time you feel so sad inside because this has truly happened. And with dystopians, I think that's like weight is lifted and you only have that entertaining factor to it. So if you have any great dystopian books that you'd like to suggest, please go ahead. I'll wait for you in the comments. And lastly for me is to tag some booktuber friends, and I will do so in the info box. I'll have to give it a thought. For now, I thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. I look forward to see you here on Friday because we'll be talking about one of Emmanuel Carrère's books. See you soon. In the meantime, happy reading. Ciao.